So we've been tiptoeing around it a little bit, but we can get into some of the speculation.
We've done pretty good to have all this conversation and not once mention who everybody is saying this guy is.
So the consensus seems to be that this is a classic villain making a reemergence, known as the Celestial Toymaker.
Yes.
Or the Toymaker. I think it goes by a couple different names. Let me pull up what they have here in the wiki. So the Toymaker, also known as the Celestial Toymaker, the Crystal Guardian, and the Mandarin, was a powerful being who ensnared sentient beings in seemingly childish games with their freedom as the stakes. However, the Toymaker hated to lose, and the games were always rigged in his favor. So that's kind of the intro paragraph to the article on the Doctor Who wiki about the Toymaker. So this is a character that showed up all the way back with the first Doctor.
Yeah.
Which I believe, if I heard correctly, every episode that he's in are lost episodes except for one. Yeah. So you couldn't even go back and watch this whole series if you wanted to. So Celestial Toymaker, it fits from the name. If you're purely going by the name, it fits. Now, if you start to read the description of kind of the character and how he interacted with the Doctor, it doesn't quite fit as much as to like him actually being a toy maker and like having the garb of a toy maker and working in a toy shop. That's not all stuff that he did. Now,
right.
From what I can tell, I admittedly haven't seen the episodes because they're lost episodes. But, from what I've read in the interactions with the Doctor, he plays more of a almost godlike being that can change realities as opposed to someone who is dressed like a toy maker.
Right. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say to that, right? Like, what I think we could potentially be seeing is a classic character that is being translated to a modern time and doing so in such a way that it's done more appropriately. If you take a look at all the images that at least I've seen of the Celestial Toymaker, it is very much in the format of the Mandarin, right? Like you have a more cultural garb there. I don't think that is as acceptable in modern times, and rightfully so, cultural appropriation, as what it was back in the 60s, or at least it's viewed differently. So I think it makes more sense for it to then be the Celestial Toymaker and reinterpret it more as a toy maker fashion, which is why we could probably get away with saying if it is, that's why the character looks and is kind of fleshed out slightly differently. So that's just like my quick rehashing of how we could take a classic character, translate it to modern times, and still have it be the same character, although it might interact or be slightly different than what we would expect. I think once you look at some of the things that we see taking place in the recordings of the set that we've seen, again, like we have someone who's able to control other people and create chaos and be in total control and comfortable in that setting. That's the read that I'm getting of the Celestial Toymaker. And that does match with some of the videos that we see of this character and how they interact with their environment around them. They seem like they are in control and playing a game with the Doctor.
Right. Yes, the descriptions that I read from like the classic version of this character kind of remind me, if you've watched Star Trek at all, kind of remind me of the character named Q in Star Trek. Have you watched Star Trek?
I know only because you mentioned this, and I was like, okay, I'm now reading the TARDIS wiki, and I'm now reading the Star Trek wiki to compare characters.
So if anybody that's listening to this has watched Star Trek's The Next Generation or the current Picard series, this character Q, which I believe shows up in even some of the other series, is kind of a foil for the Doctor, the captain, or Captain Picard, who very similarly has godlike powers, puts the characters in these situations that they have to figure their way out of, and tends to kind of cheat to make things, go his way. Um, it's like playthings in his little realm, and it's almost exactly how this character is kind of described. So I'm kind of imagining that sort of thing maybe happening if this is the direction they're going. Once again,
Yeah.
complete speculation. And honestly, I'm not completely convinced. I think a lot of people are like, this is definitely the Toymaker. This is what they're giving us. I think it could be a similar type of character, but not what we're expecting, not the Toymaker. I think it could be somebody completely different, but who knows? But if they're going that direction with it, and it is this godlike character who can basically make the Doctor see things that aren't really happening, or maybe even make the Doctor appear a different way than we're used to seeing the Doctor.
Yeah.
It's when you do start to put the pieces together as like, okay, now David Tennant and Catherine Tate are back unexpectedly. How do you explain that they're back? Well, maybe it's not them, or maybe this character, this Toymaker, is making the Doctor and their companion kind of shift. So like, in part of the story, it's Tennant and Tate, but then it shifts, and then suddenly it's Smith and whoever, or it's Capaldi and somebody else. And this is me just going on wild speculation, but how cool would that be of a way to bring in multiple versions of the Doctor and multiple companions in the same storyline? And throughout the story, they're kind of shifting, and like suddenly now it's Capaldi and Clara fighting against him, and then in the next scene it's Tennant and Tate, and like throughout the story it's kind of shifting the entire time. I don't know. It's probably not going to go that way, but it seems like this guy has that altering reality type of power, and we are kind of questioning how Tennant and Tate can be back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are still so many questions in regards to what is actually in store. Again, if you would have asked either of us if Neil Patrick Harris would be announced as a character in the 60th anniversary special, we wouldn't have said so. And I don't think this is the last surprise announcement of a character that we're going to have. I think there's still more casting to come. The way that they are setting up the 60th anniversary, I don't think it's going to be like anything we've ever really witnessed before in Doctor Who. The 50th anniversary was one thing. This seems like it might be even more than that.
Yeah, I agree. They're being really weird with the way they're wording stuff as they're announcing these actors. And I do think, like you said, you think that there's more announcements to come. I think there's a lot more announcements to come. I think really the reason why we've gotten them in the order that we've gotten them is because of the filming schedule.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Neil Patrick Harris, they announce him, then next thing you know, he's already on set, and all the set leaks come. And I think they're filming all of his stuff right now with David Tennant. And is it a contained story where it's David Tennant's version of the Doctor versus the Celestial Toymaker, and this is part of the 60th anniversary, and this is what we're getting because of that's what the sets are going to show us, so that's who they've announced. But if Smith or Capaldi or any of the other Doctors are coming back, maybe they just haven't started filming their scenes yet, and that's why they haven't had to announce it yet. So there's definitely a potential, that once they start to get to that point where they're starting to film more scenes, that these other announcements will pop up. So I agree. I think there's a lot more to come.